The wind carried the scent of rain and soil as Caleb Parker knelt beside his tractor, hands stained with grease and a heart heavy with worry. Another breakdown, another day lost, and with the bank breathing down his neck, time wasn't a luxury he could afford. He wiped his brow with the sleeve of his flannel shirt, eyes drifting toward the empty horizon of his weather-beaten Nebraska farm. There wasn't much left now, just a stubborn man, a collapsing barn, and bills stacked like hay bales on his kitchen table. That's when he heard it, the cough and sputter of an engine, then silence. A shiny black SUV sat crooked on the shoulder of the county road, maybe 50 yards away. Steam puffed from under its hood. Caleb squinted. It looked like one of those fancy city cars that had no business being out here. He tossed the wrench into the dirt and stood. The sensible part of him whispered, "Not your problem," but Caleb wasn't built that way. Trouble was trouble, and someone needed help. As he approached, the driver's door creaked open. Out stepped a young woman, early 20s, in heels and a cream-colored coat that cost more than his truck. She waved sheepishly. "I think it overheated," she called, flashing a tight smile. Caleb nodded, tipping his hat. "Could be. Let's have a look." Under the hood, he found the radiator cap barely hanging on. Probably city maintenance didn't even check the basics. As he worked, she hovered nearby, fidgeting with her phone, trying and failing to get a signal. "I'm Claire," she said finally, watching him with interest. "I was driving to Kansas City from Denver. GPS took me through this scenic detour, Caleb," he replied, not looking up. "This route's got more cows than cell towers." She laughed, and it surprised them both. Something eased between them, a silence that didn't feel awkward. 10 minutes later, the SUV sputtered to life. Claire clapped her hands in delight. "You're a miracle worker." Caleb smiled modestly. "Just a farmer who knows machines better than people." Claire hesitated. "Well, would this farmer let me buy him lunch, as a thank you?" Caleb nearly declined. He had fences to mend, chores waiting, but something in her expression, a mix of sincerity and loneliness, made him nod. The only place for miles was a tiny diner off Route 6, where the waitress knew Caleb's order by heart. They took a corner booth. Claire asked questions, real ones, not just polite city chatter, about the farm, about his family, about why he looked like he hadn't smiled in weeks. Caleb opened up more than he expected, told her how he'd lost his wife 2 years ago, how droughts and rising costs were eating him alive, how he was days from defaulting on the land his great-grandfather had broken ground on. Claire listened with eyes wide and hands still. "You ever think about leaving?" she asked gently. He chuckled bitterly. "And do what? I wouldn't last a day in your world." She looked down. "You might be surprised." They parted with a handshake. Caleb watched her SUV shrink down the highway, then returned to his rusted tractor, unaware that something had shifted, like the moment before a storm breaks or a seed finally sprouts. 3 days later, a black car pulled into his drive. Not Claire's SUV, a sleek town car with tinted windows. Out stepped a man in a sharp gray suit holding an envelope. "Mr. Parker?" the man asked. Caleb nodded warily. "I represent Helena Stratton, my employer." "Who?" The man smiled. "You might know her better as one of the top agricultural investors in North America. Also, Claire Stratton's mother." Caleb's jaw went slack. "She told her mother about you." The man continued, "Your kindness, your story. Miss Stratton believes in investing in people, not just numbers." He handed over the envelope. Inside was a letter and a check. Caleb blinked. It wasn't a loan, it was a grant, enough to fix the farm, clear the debt, breathe again. "She said you reminded her what the heart of this country looks like." The man said, "And that we'd all be better off if more people were like you." Caleb didn't speak, couldn't. As the car disappeared down the road, Caleb stared at the land he thought he was about to lose. The same land that had taken everything from him, and in some mysterious way given something back. That evening, as the sun dipped low behind the fields, Caleb stood on his porch, hands in his pockets, the check still clutched in one hand. He smiled, not because of the money, but because a moment of kindness, a wrench, a ride, a lunch, had come back to him in the most unexpected way. Somewhere out there, a city girl named Claire had reminded him that humanity wasn't dead. That sometimes helping a stranger wasn't just the right thing to do. It was the start of something bigger, a chance, a miracle, a seed, and Caleb Parker, the struggling farmer, finally felt like he could grow something again.